That was May's Feel So Good. So in 2023, at Henrico Doctors Hospital in Richmond, Virginia, they noticed in the NICU unit, that is the critical care for infants. A lot of times they're born with problems at birth. They are premature. They go to the NICU. They noticed that there was a series of infants, premature infants with fracturing. One of them had as many as 12 fractures. Now, it's not uncommon for babies, especially premature babies or babies who've had problems being, in the birthing process, to have fractures. It's not common, but it's not so uncommon that it would be unusual. You wouldn't see that go. But when you see 3, you go, wow, this is unusual. It got to be so unusual that a nurse, her name was Erin Strothman, that they suspended her for a year with pay while they investigated. Now, they set up cameras, they had training, they brought in investigative teams, because now you have 3 people who have 3 small infants who are in the NICU who had these fractures. They suspend this nurse for a year with pay. She comes back in 2024, and lo and behold, the fracturing of infants' limbs starts again. So much so, I think there were 4 or 5. So much so that the very nurse that they just let come back, who had been suspended for a year with pay, she is now being charged with malicious wounding, child abuse, and child neglect. So they let her go while they were investigating. Let her be paid while they were investigating. When she came back and started again, they understood that this is what happened. There is no more vulnerable being on the face of the earth than an infant, than a premature child. No more vulnerable being. They can't feed themselves. They can't speak. They can't walk. They can't talk. They're fighting for their lives. And for someone to then take advantage and start hurting them before they get a chance to be anything is one of the sickest things I've ever heard. And you can tell who they are by how silent they are about who they are. Can you imagine if they were anything other than black children, that we wouldn't have heard about this on the national news? Can you imagine if they were anything other than black children, that very woman would have gotten to come back a year later, or that investigation a year later or 2 years later will result in someone being charged for malicious wounding, for child abuse, and for neglect? Can you imagine if it were anybody else? If it were anybody else. Now, you can tell who it is by what's not being said. Now, these are children. You can't be infants, one struggling for their lives. Already, they already are behind the 8 ball. They already are in the process. They're already struggling to just live. And you have somebody who's charged for their health and their care, who's taking an oath to make sure that they do the best they can to do no harm, harming them. And then what is particularly disturbing is that the very people who are supposed to watch over them put that same woman in a position where she could do it again. You don't have to describe to me what color those people are, the little babies are, because everything you've done since tells me what color they are. The fact that there's not national outrage, the fact that this is quiet, the fact that a woman got to be suspended after she done harm to somebody and come back. And no matter what you tell me, these are children that never have had a chance to breathe or become the threat that everybody alleges they're going to be, or to be a drain on society, or to be dangerous. Before they even drew a breath, before they walk, before they talk, before they could form any idea of who they are, they were already being hurt. And there were people allowing it to happen. People that allowed it to happen. What did that investigation yield 2 years later that let you have her job back? And then as soon as she gets back, that starts happening again. Who else would they do that to? Who else? What other group of people would that happen to? Can you imagine it happening any other place, to any other demographic, except the sickest, the most vulnerable, the weakest, the most needy of us? That, ladies and gentlemen, is what it's like to be a black person in America. You get hurt or maimed or has violence visited upon you before you even get to utter a sound. That's a little note from the GED section. Got a jazz report coming up in 15 minutes. It's the D.L. Hughley Show.